What is up, guys? I just got off an amazing conversation with the one and only Daniel Cormier. We got into the title fight that just went down at 270, the Dana versus Ngannou contract situation. We talked about rumors of him and Izzy almost training together and his top fighter investment picks. Check it out here. What is up, guys? I'm here with UFC legend and PredictionStrike partner, Daniel Cormier. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing super well. I'm ready to get right into it. I want to hear about your take about the fights we had. What did you make of the Francis and Ciryl Gane fight?
It was a good fight. It was different than what we expected, right? Who would have ever thought that Francis and Ngannou would win the fight by wrestling? That's like last result. And when you think about the betting, Francis by decision was this astronomical number because every fight he had won to last weekend was always by finish. So it was much different than I thought. It started like we expected it to, but then Francis made adjustments. And when he made those adjustments, Ciryl didn't have the answers for it.
Do you think his wrestling is that high level, or is he just that strong, or what?
I think he was strong. I don't think, the one takedown that he did, the double leg, was very good. He got his hands locked and he took him down to the mat. But at the end of the day, I think it boiled down to Francis being the bigger, stronger athlete and had more of a willingness to go and attack takedowns. That's pretty much what it was. We will not mistake Francis Ngannou for an NCAA All-American. Just safe to say that.
I've been seeing the edits of him like with the Dagestan beard now, Ngannou Magedov, all the Khabib references now.
People get excited, especially when you see something new, right? Like as a person that watches the fights, it is exciting to see Francis starting to add these new tools to his game. Yeah,
and seeing how it went down, be honest with me, were you sizing them up live, seeing the wrestling go down?
No
way?
No, absolutely not. No. Sizing them up, sizing them up is the most true way that I would have to look at a fight against those dudes. Sizing them up, like a foot taller than me, both of them are. Like, those guys are massive, man. We are living in a new world of heavyweight, and I wouldn't fit into that world anymore.
They're kind of almost the same size, but they're actual super freak athletes now, right?
They are. They're big, but as we said all week, if these guys grew up in the United States, they'd be playing American football, making hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the type of athletes that these two guys are.
Yeah, much like how John Jones' brothers did. I wanted to ask, how do you think heavyweight John faces against these two beasts, or Stipe?
I think that Jones is a very talented mixed martial artist, and I think that against anyone he would fare well. I was looking at his tweets after the fight, and he seemed more confident. But you got to remember, Francis is the king of the jungle. But that was a wounded Francis Ngannou. He had a torn meniscus. He went out there and had to wrestle against a guy that he has a history with. And I think that to take confidence from that would be a bit of a false confidence. You got to be careful saying that you think Francis is bad now because of the way he fought on Saturday.
And there's reports that he is now heading into surgery on the MCL. Right?
Really hurt.
And I want to ask more on Ngannou. What do you make of his sort of contract situation with Dana White? Now, that report that he apparently got notice that he might be getting sued on the way to the fight itself.
Really? I'd never heard that. Honestly, I hadn't really heard that. I think we are in uncharted territory. We've never seen a guy fight out his contract and be the heavyweight champion of the world. We've never really seen that. So I think this will really show how contract negotiations, especially in contentious situations, will be handled. It's a big learning experience for a lot of fighters right now.
Yeah, and any interest on your own part for seeing him box?
I think seeing Francis box was a great thought. But then after watching him last weekend, having trouble getting to Ciryl, I think it's much less sought after because he was struggling a bit. But I could see Francis have the type of success that Deontay Wilder had at a lower level. Maybe not as high as Deontay went because Deontay was an Olympian, but Francis, with the power that he possesses, could do well, but not at the elite of the elite. Look at what happened to Deontay when he ran into Tyson Fury. So imagine what would happen to a heavy puncher like Francis, who doesn't have that traditional boxing background.
Yeah, and moving on to the co-main, do you think, to be honest, the judges had it right between Figgy and Moreno? I know it was close.
It was close. It was very close. And I think that once you got done with the fight, you didn't really feel upset at whoever won, unless you were just really rooting for one side or the other. It's the only way to be mad at the way that this decision was read. Because here's the thing. It came down to the moments in the fight, and Davison Figueiredo had the moments. In round one, he did a good job of just touching Brandon Moreno, landing kicks, outlanding him. Round two, Brandon Moreno won. Round three, Moreno was fighting a beautiful round, but then he got dropped. In a round that's close, you can't get dropped. Round four, which I thought Moreno fought a very good round, 2 to 3 judges scored that round for Davison Figueiredo. And then we get to round 5, and what happens again? Moreno gets dropped. It came down to the moments. And I think those moments are why Davison Figueiredo is now the flyweight champion of the world.
And do you think there's a common saying that, like, to be the champ, you got to beat the champ? Do you think a tie in that sense works out that way? Or
I don't agree with that. I think that's one of those sayings that we took from a place that should have never been taken seriously. Ric Flair used to say that. To beat a man, you got to beat the man. Well, Ric Flair was a professional wrestler with predetermined outcomes. So you can't really take that as fact. I think I don't agree with that. I think that it's much more to judging fights, and whoever wins should get the belt. There should not be any head start for the champion because he's the champion.
I think that's fair. And still, looking at the total heavyweight title picture, do you think Stipe, who you only had your trilogy with recently, is being sort of overlooked by the traditional UFC fan base now?
I just think that for Stipe, it's about getting busy. When he lost the belt to me, he had just defended it for a third time. So him sitting out was logical because he immediately needed a rematch. It also helped that I was saying, I'll give Stipe a rematch if Brock Lesnar doesn't fight. So it kind of helped Stipe. But losing to Francis is a much different scenario, right? There are so many people lined up to fight the champion that it's hard to go backwards to Stipe Miocic. I don't know if he's getting overlooked. I just believe that the landscape's changed and he's trying to approach it in the way that he did before. And I don't think he can do that.
And on the topic of Stipe, when you look back to that third fight of the trilogy, do you ever think of how you might have relived it differently, or you leave it at that?
Just old, man. I got old. I was 41 years old when I fought Stipe the third time. The one time we fought in my 30s, I beat him. So, and at 39 years old, for that matter. I just got old, man. I was 41 years old. I had back surgery, and if you could take things back, if you can go backwards, when I had that back surgery, I probably would have walked away because I just wasn't the same guy. I couldn't train the same way. I couldn't compete the same way. It was just different. We did all we could. We got as prepared as we could. And but Stipe got the job done. We were dealing with COVID and all these other things. Like, when I look back now, to say that I fought for 25 minutes 4 weeks after COVID, pretty proud of what I did.
Yeah. And do you think that's like a new trend, actually, and that people are doing something right with, like, retiring at their peaks?
I think that fighters don't want to walk away. Most of your great champions walk away losing. I just didn't walk away with the last visual of me being out on my back, knocked out. Most great champions are knocked out and then drugged out of the octagon or out of the boxing ring. I was fortunate enough to be able to fight a trilogy fight and compete for 25 minutes against a great champion like Stipe Miocic. But fighters don't walk away in their prime. I think Khabib is an outlier. Khabib's a unicorn. Not many people do that.
And as a fan, you gave us just more and more to watch and root for. So selfishly, it was an incredible thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just looking forward now to UFC 271. The matchup everyone's been waiting for is Izzy versus Rob.
Yep.
Can you give us a breakdown for how you see that potentially going down?
I think it's a great fight. When we go back to Australia, 61,000 people in the arena for Adesanya versus Whitaker won. Robert Whitaker, I thought, made a bunch of mistakes in regards to how he approached the fight because him and Kelvin Gastelum are about the same height. And I think he tried to adopt the style in which Kelvin fought Izzy and found a lot of success. Well, the reality of the situation is Kelvin also had a really high wrestling threat for Adesanya. Whitaker, even though he is a wrestler, hasn't really shown that many takedowns. So he put himself in danger going into the firefight with Israel Adesanya. Adesanya is an absolute sniper, man. And if you engage with him on his terms, you're going to find yourself behind the 8 ball. And that's exactly what happened to Whitaker. But for a guy in Robert Whitaker, Bobby Knuckles, as we love to call him, to have defended the belt as many times as he did, to reach the level to which he did, come back and actually be better, it speaks to the type of athlete that Robert Whitaker is. Granted, we haven't seen Israel Adesanya as much. We saw him beat Marvin Vettori. We saw what he did to Paulo Costa. But he's always improving also. I think that we're going to see the two best middleweights in the world compete for that championship down in Houston. I do anticipate a much longer fight. I cannot predict the result, but I do believe we're going to be in for a much, much longer fight. And I believe that both guys will show signs and have success opposed to Izzy dominating in the way that he did in fight number 1.
And we're so excited to see it. And I actually have a story about Izzy that I want your take on. According to one of our media partners, Brawler Bible on Instagram, it's rumored that you reached out to Izzy way back when.
Yep.
Like when you were training for a bout against John Jones. And He actually said no because he didn't want Luke Rockhold to get like a look at his striking.
Yep.
Is that true? And how crazy would that be?
Absolutely true. It's absolutely true because at the time, Luke Rockhold was hanging around the top of the division. So when I reached out to Adesanya, I asked him, I said, hey, would you mind coming down to San Jose to train? Help me prepare for Jones. He goes, DC, while I'm a massive fan and a big supporter, he goes, I can't be in there because Luke Rockhold trains there. And dude, he wasn't even like, I think he was barely in the UFC. He barely was starting, but he had the wherewithal and the foresight to know that Luke Rockhold may become a problem down the line. And I respected that and took his answer as such. And now you can look back and say he was right because when he was on his way up, Rockhold was on his way down, and their paths easily could have crossed.
Easily. That's such an unbelievable story, actually. And looking at like investment opportunities within PredictionStrike specifically, I always like getting fighter takes.
Yep.
Who would be your top guns in the bantamweight, lightweight, and welterweight class?
Okay. Bantamweight, lightweight, and welterweight. Okay, so at 135, honestly, it's about investing early and hoping that those shares become so valuable down the line that you got in on the ground level. One of the guys for me, and I know it's really high already, but you could look at a guy like Sean O'Malley, right, who is still way down in the rankings, but ultimately looks like he's a guy that has potential to go to the top. But if there's a can't miss guy for me, I would say it's Merab Dvalishvili because he isn't the glitzy, he isn't the sexy choice, but he is a guy that is going to find ways to win big and important fights. So even if he's not champion at some point, he is a guy that will hang around the top of the division for a really, really long time. At 145, I think right now we got to kind of go back, right? And if this guy continues to compete, he's a guy that I believe that his stock would be low now because we haven't seen him for so long. But if he came back, he immediately would be back in the title picture. Zabit Magomed Sharipov. The guy was so talented, but he's been gone for years now. People have forgot about Zabit. Zabit comes back. Zabit immediately enters the title picture, and with his fighting style, he is a problem for every single fighter at 145 pounds. And he's a guy that truly can fight and beat just about anybody in the division. At 155, man, it's hard because I believe that Islam Makhachev is going to be the champion. He's going to be the champion until he decides to walk away. But his value is already so high because he's knocking on the door. So for me, if I'm investing, I'm trying to invest on the next thing. I'm trying to invest on the guy that doesn't just jump off the page to you, the guy that you see something in that has potential. So I guess I would probably say Paddy Pimblett. He's a guy that he came on into the UFC, made a massive statement, in the Apex. People were drawn to him. And once again, even if he's not the champion, he has a real good skill set. He has the way and an ability to hang around the top of the division for a really long time. So I believe that that investment will then pay dividends. At 170, Ian Gary is another guy. Young guy, very talented, undefeated. Madison Square Garden completely blew the roof off. And he's like McGregor. He's talking, can talk the talk. He has the look. He has the fighting style. And I believe that there will be value in Ian Gary for a really long time.
You know, and a lot of the guys you mentioned have skyrocketed because they're such popular people.
Yep.
But I mean, if Islam could defend 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, in theory, that would be the best of all. Do you
Absolutely.
have any idea on a personal level how long you might want to stick around?
You know, Islam has not talked at all about retirement. You know, like there's never been I'm going to get to 30 and whatever, like Khabib talked about. Khabib talked about for a long time going to 30-0. This wasn't new to the people closest to Khabib. Ultimately, it was one fight short of that. There's never been any talk of retirement from Islam. So I think he's going to be around for a real long time. Still a young guy, too.
Man, and anyone at AKA specifically, some young stud, maybe someone unheard of that you're high on.
Umar Nurmagomedov. I mean, I know the last name is very common, but Umar he's tremendous, man. He's a 135-pounder, but he is absolutely tremendous. Because not only does he have the wrestling and the grappling of Khabib, at a much earlier age and a much earlier level in his UFC career, he has the striking. And with all those skills to add that striking and be as good as it is now, Umar's going to be a problem.
And back to Khabib specifically, do you have any plans to potentially get involved with his promotion, the Eagle FC?
You know, I will always support Khabib. You know, I wanted to go to his fight down in Miami this weekend, but I have family obligations. But yeah, whatever I can do to help my brother. You know, Khabib is a great guy, one of my best friends, and he is going to be successful in anything he does. I have no doubt that this kid this man will find success regardless of what he does.
And Eagle FC specifically, now that they've gotten big names like Kevin Lee, are sort of putting themselves on the map. Are you excited to see these prior UFC talents out there?
Oh, I'm very excited. I know what Khabib wants to build. And honestly, Khabib wants to build an organization that's fun, that's engaging, and guys can go to try to right the ship, right? Kevin Lee was out of the UFC. Now he's with Khabib and at Eagle FC with a chance to headline a card, the first US card, and try to right the ship, to go and do things the way that you know Kevin Lee is capable of doing things. The guy's extremely talented. He's still young. He's a good fighter. And I'm excited to see what happens and how he approaches this new start in his career.
Mm-hmm. And speaking on the topic of your big name relationships, what's it like working on pay-per-views with Joe Rogan? How has that relationship grown over time?
It's the best. You know, working on pay-per-view with Joe Rogan and John Anik is it's amazing. You know, we have got a core of 4 people that do these pay-per-views. John, Joe, myself, and Megan O'Leary. And we become a family because you know that on those big fight nights, those 4 faces are always there. It's tremendous. Joe has a star quality about him that is unmatched by anyone in the UFC's history. Because for all the great fighters and champions that have come and gone, Joe Rogan and Dana White have been consistent. They've been constant. And I'm so happy to sit next to him, to his right, to John Anik's right, and to the left of Megan O'Leary. I think that we have a great pay-per-view broadcast team, and you see it. You see it in the fighters. The moment Joe goes in the octagon, oh my God, Joe Rogan! Like the guy's a massive star on so many levels.
Even the fighters themselves end up just complimenting Joe Rogan or saying they're a fan as soon as the interview starts.
They love him.
Yeah, and like your team, actually, you can tell that Megan O'Leary to John Anik, like when you guys work together, the actual value of the product has gone up so much in the last few years.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
GC, these were all the questions I really wanted to get into. I want to thank you for doing this. It's been an awesome time having this.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. I appreciate it. And look, PredictionStrike is fantastic. It's safe. and it's less risky, right? Traditional betting can be a bit risky at times. This is getting on the ground floor, finding your guy, and riding the wave with him. I mean, why wouldn't you? I like it. I really enjoy it. I'm all in.
Oh, we're ecstatic about it. DC, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.